This is group number 5. We will now introduce ourselves and our roles. My name is Kaylin and my role is discussion director.
My name is Celeste and I'm the connector.
My name is Brendan and I'm the summarizer.
My name is Anna and I'm the literary luminary.
Our goal today is to connect to our books by comparing and contrasting them. We will use our role documents to help us facilitate that conversation. Please pull up your role document. We will begin with a brief summary from the summarizer. Please share the one major event and, most importantly, the event's significance in relationship to each other.
As a summarizer, I read Jessica's first prayer, and the most important event was Jess meeting Mr. Daniel for the first time. Mr. Daniel becomes a very important character in the book because his relationship with Jess grows through the meeting. And Mr. Daniel owns a coffee stand that Jess goes to when she's hungry and thirsty because she's homeless and her mom does not care for her. So Mr. Daniel gives her the leftovers and the coffee that is left for the day to help her. And eventually Mr. Daniel and Jess become very good friends because Jess followed him to church one night and she learned about church and God. And Mr. Daniel eventually became a father figure to Jess and took care of her up until she got sick, where she started praying that she would get better to stay on earth with Mr. Daniel and not die. And those prayers came true because she started praying to God.
Thank you, summarizer. Now let's have everyone else summarize as well so we can better understand each other's books. I'll go. A significant event in my book was the Assyrian invasion of Lachish in Judea, which is a Jewish city, or was a Jewish city. And the general ordered his army to attack the city, and they took it with great force and power through brutality and just overall power. I think this was included in the book to display how powerful they were and what tactics they used to give us a better understanding of how they ran their military.
So something important in my book was my character Natasha, and she unfortunately has to get deported back to Jamaica because of personal financial issues and family issues. And so she has to move back and make new friends and create a whole new life and start all over again, which I do find is very difficult. And I think it's the most important part of the story because it kind of portrays as a opening for the book and how everything will end up turning out.
In my book, a significant event is the conductor saying that they should all go find God, because that was a sign for Daniel to go walk out and walk around the city, and that's how he met Natasha.
We will now move to our literary luminaire, who will share some insightful quotes. Literary luminaire, please share 2 quotes.
A quote I wrote was, I am my father's greatest regret. This shows the relationship between Natasha and her father. The only reason why she moved back to America was for him, and the only reason being moved back to Jamaica is also because of him. And it also plays a role by showing the negative relationship between her and her father. Another quote I wrote was, learn how to use chopsticks. There are many sides of the story. One side is the waiter should not have said that because her culture and her background is not the most important one. But on the other side, she has lost her son. She always loved her son, but when he got a white girlfriend she did not approve of, she cuts connections with him, hoping that he would come to his senses. But he calls her again to say that he wants her to come to his wedding. She sees this as slowly losing her Korean family line. She slowly sees him living his life and his family being whitewashed, and gets mad because she thinks that her country is taking everything away from her family, her children, and mostly her culture.
Thank you for sharing those insightful quotes, literary luminaire. Now we will have our connector link his or her book to our world and our own lives.
So Daniel's feelings towards Natasha reflect on how people act in today's society, He tries to charm her and make her fall in love with him. He pursues her and will not give up until she shares his feelings towards him. This relates to the real world because people in our generation do not move on to other people. Instead, they do what Daniel do and refuse to accept no as an answer. And they will keep trying until they get what they want or want to hear. And I feel like people in this generation do the same thing as well, and that connects to the book. Also, Natasha having to move back to Jamaica and dealing with struggles relate to this world because a lot of people who have been deported or have to move to different countries or cities have to feel the same way and deal with making new friends, joining a new community, and fitting in.
Thank you, Connector. Now I will ask you all some questions as the director. I will not answer my own questions until all of you have shared your answer to that question. Please understand that I may need to encourage you to share if you aren't sharing, just as I may need to ask you to hold on to your response until we hear from others. This is also a time for you to engage in questions from one another. Remember, our goal is to link our books and identify similarities between characters, conflicts, themes, and/or central ideas to earn the highest grade. So my first question about the events you guys just mentioned, do you think these will be important later on in the story, and why?
I think that they will be more important later on in the story because Jess and Mr. Daniel's relationship grows day by day, because at first they were total strangers who met on the street, but eventually Jess moved into a house with Mr. Daniel and he took care of her as a father would, and their relationship will just continue to grow because they only met a couple months ago, and so far their relationship has blossomed into a father-daughter relationship when in reality they're total strangers.
I think my event will become later on important to the story because they soon have to split up into different places, and I think the story will bring them back together and show if they meet again or not.
I think it relates because of that event. I think they're gonna go hang out more, and then they might get to know each other more.
I think my event will not be important later on because I believe that the author was giving the reader an example of how the Assyrian military goes into battle. The author went into great detail about the strategies used and not really the actual events that took place. And he also explained how people felt going into battle and gave a setting based on what was happening. My next question is, who are some characters in your book and what are they like?
So some of the characters in my book are one, the main character Jess. Jess is very likable and is very inquisitive about God and the church. She likes to help others and likes to pray a lot when she's in need. Another character is Mr. Daniel. Mr. Daniel is very caring, but is also kind of selfish at sometimes, because when him and Jess did not have that great of a relationship, he kicked Jess out of the church because she was dirty and was tattered because she had no parents and her mom did not care for her, so she couldn't get the things she needed. And another character, or characters, are the daughters of the minister, and they love Jess so much, they never judged her for her financial value or who she was as a person, and they just took her in because of how nice she actually was and allowed her to meet the minister and express her feelings of her love to God.
That's great.
One of my main characters, Natasha, is a very assertive female who stands up for herself and focuses on school mainly to distract herself from her father's relationship. They don't have the best relationship, but she is very independent and almost self-centered because she focuses on only what she thinks is best for her and what will benefit her the most.
Main character is Daniel. He believes that they're destined to meet each other and everything happens for a reason, compared to Natasha, where she believes that everything is science and it's related to science.
My main character is General Rabshakeh. He is a war general that is talented at what he does. He uses great poise and knows that he'll be successful because of his gods and what the people before him have done. It is also his religious duty every year to go out and try to take land, but he doesn't do it just because his religion tells him to. He does it because he wants to be great and take over lands and gain fame, riches, and other stuff for his country.
Has he accomplished those yet, or is he still trying to get that?
So far, he's taken one city, but his main goal is to take Jerusalem, which would mean he would take the whole Jewish empire.
I see.
Do you think there'll be anything that can restrict him from doing that, based on what you've read so far?
I think that so far he hasn't encountered any problems, but I think he will face adversity when trying to take Jerusalem because it's the capital and it's also a very big city. My next question is, how is the character you just mentioned similar or different to Miss Ridley?
Well, especially with Jess, Jess doesn't really like to feel like she has authority that much. Jess will kind of she does what's going on really, because she never really had a mother or father figure in her life, because her mother was always going out and she was addicted to alcohol, so she never really took care of her. And whatever said kind of went. So whenever Mr. Daniel told her, you can only come on Wednesdays because I don't want you to be taking all this because I need it, she only came on Wednesdays. And when the minister told her about God and how to pray, she prayed, just because that's what was told to her. And she doesn't have authority as someone like Mr. Ridley would.
Mm-hmm.
So Natasha and Mr. Ridley would have different disciplines. Mr. Ridley would give you consequences for your actions and teach you lessons, but with Natasha, she'll just either not talk to you anymore or start blocking you from her life and start focusing on herself more, I think.
I mean, how would you describe Natasha's personality?
She's very, intuitive and a little emotional when it comes to things because she's had such intense background that she has not really had time to focus on herself, so her personality is a bit strong.
Does she have a lot of things happening to her during a short period of time that
Yes.
really make her more emotional?
She soon has to get deported back to Jamaica, and her father does stress her a lot about her grades and her life.
I think Natasha is different because usually when things happen in the book, she just kind of just give up, and then she thinks of a next best thing. Instead of Mr. Ridley might just do the best thing. He would just stand up for what he thinks is right, and he would just tell them what to do.
I think Rapshka is similar to Mr. Ridley because he wants the best for everybody and kind of has to tell people what to do in order to be the best. He's successful at what he does, and he also has to control a large amount of people being his soldiers, but Mr. Ridley has to tell us what to do.
Especially what I think you just mentioned, I think it relates to the character of the minister in my book. I think they're very similar people.
My last question is, how do you feel about the events taking place in your story? How does it make you feel?
I feel good about it because Jessie's life is getting better day by day. She went from being sad and depressed and hungry and thirsty to having a home and having people around her that truly love and care for her. And she finally found something to put her heart into, which is the church and God. So she is thriving day by praying and going to church and meeting the minister and his daughters, and also being able to live with Mr. Daniel in an apartment really helped her because she went from sleeping on hay and getting sick day by day to being in a nice home that's warm and has a nice bed for her so that she could just have a nice normal life.
It does make me feel a little bit emotional because of what Natasha is going through, but it also makes me feel a sense of hope that since Daniel and her do encounter each other, that I think Daniel can make a really good impact on her and teach her some lessons, and they can both share their personalities and maybe even have a good connection with each other.
I feel happy for them because they're getting a closer connection with each other, and they can relate to each other with the problems such as racial things. They keep getting treated badly or just unfair because of their race, so they relate to each other, and it makes them connect in a deeper level.
I feel intrigued about my story because I want to know what happens. Like, will they take Jerusalem or will they be defeated? I think it'll be very interesting to find out what will happen and what the consequences or the benefits will be.
You know, just as a whole, to connect all the books together, it's kind of clear after we've spoken that all the characters have a lot of things going on around them that truly shape their personality and how they act, which is one of the reasons and one of the ways that our books, although completely different in different time periods with different meanings and different overall just feelings, they all at least have some connection, and that connection is that the characters are going through a lot of adversity and having a lot of things done to them.
I think the characters are all trying to achieve something too, and all are on a path to do something as well. Like as Yearbook, he has a goal, and Brendan with Yearbook, it connects to us as well.
I think my book connects to Jessica's First Prayer because they're both strangers getting to know each other and helping each other out.
I agree.
I think that should be about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, everyone, great work today. I'm impressed with you all. Did anyone want to add any additional closing thoughts? Or...
I think our characters are all pretty well connected in different ways and perspectives.
All right, we will now close today's first Lit Circle discussion.